James Brown was in the middle of Get Up Offa That Thing when he stumbled. The 12,000 fans at Chicago Stadium didn't notice at first. They thought it was part of his famous choreography, one of those moves where he'd drop to his knees or spin unexpectedly. But the people on stage knew something was wrong. His backup singers saw his face go pale. His band saw him reach for the microphone stand, not for effect but for support. And then, in front of 12,000 screaming fans, James Brown collapsed. It was September 20th, 1974, and James had been pushing himself harder than ever. 3 shows in 2 days, minimal sleep, barely eating. He was 41 years old but still performed like he was 25, giving everything to every show. His body had been sending him warnings for days: dizziness, nausea, exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. But James Brown never canceled shows, never let his audience down, never showed weakness. Standing 6 feet behind him was a 23-year-old backup singer named Vicki Anderson. She'd been touring with James for 2 years, always in the background, always harmonizing, always supporting. Nobody in the audience knew her name. Most people didn't even see her. She was one of 3 backup singers, there to make James sound better, to add texture to his voice, to fill out the sound. That was her job. Stay in the background, don't draw attention, support the star. But when James hit the stage floor and didn't get back up, Vicki had about 3 seconds to make a decision that would change both their lives. If you want to discover the untold stories behind music's greatest legends, please subscribe to our channel. We're revealing the moments that shaped history. The concert had started normally. James came out in his signature cape, the crowd went wild, and he launched into his hits with that explosive energy everyone expected. Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, I Got You, I Feel Good, Sex Machine. Every song brought the house down. But backstage, his road manager Danny Ray had been worried. James had thrown up twice before the show. He'd looked gray, exhausted. Danny suggested postponing. I don't postpone, James said. These people paid money. They're getting a show. Vicki had noticed too. During soundcheck, James had been unsteady on his feet. His voice, usually powerful and commanding, sounded strained. She'd caught his eye once, concerned, but James just nodded. He'd be fine. He was always fine. He was James Brown. 40 minutes into the show, during Get Up Offa That Thing, James started the famous routine where he'd encourage the audience to stand up and dance. He was moving across the stage, doing his signature footwork, when his leg buckled. He caught himself on the microphone stand. The band, professional as always, kept playing. The backup singers kept singing. Maybe he'd recover. Maybe it was just a stumble. Then James's eyes rolled back, and he went down hard. The music stopped immediately. The crowd gasped, confused. Was this part of the show? James was famous for dramatic performances, but the way he was lying there motionless didn't look theatrical. It looked real. It looked scary. Danny Ray rushed on stage. Band members surrounded James. Someone yelled for a doctor. The 12,000 fans started to realize this wasn't part of the act. Worried murmurs rippled through the stadium. Some people were standing. Some were crying. Everyone was afraid. That's when Vicki stepped forward. She didn't think about it, didn't calculate, just acted on pure instinct. She walked to the front of the stage, picked up James's microphone, and spoke to 12,000 terrified people. James Brown is going to be okay, she said, her voice steady even though her hands were shaking. He's been working harder than anyone should work. He gave you everything he had tonight, just like he always does. And right now, while we're making sure he gets help, we're going to do what James would want. We're going to keep this show going. The crowd didn't know what to make of this. Who was this woman? Why was she speaking instead of James? My name is Vicki Anderson, she continued. I've been singing backup for Mr. Brown for 2 years, and I've learned from the best. James Brown taught me that the show doesn't stop, that we owe the audience our best. So while he's getting the care he needs, we're going to honor him by doing what he'd do. We're going to play. She turned to the band. Fred, start us on Think. We're going to show them what James taught us. Fred Wesley, the trombone player and band leader, stared at her. They'd never done a show without James, never even considered it. But Vicki's eyes were determined, and James was being carried off stage by medics. Someone had to do something. Fred counted it off. The band started playing Think, one of James's classics, and Vicki began to sing. She didn't try to sound like James. She couldn't. Instead, she sang it in her own voice, powerful and soulful, different but authentic. The backup singers joined in with harmonies they'd practiced 1,000 times. The horns played the arrangements they knew by heart. And slowly the crowd started to respond. People sat back down. The panic began to ease, because even though James Brown wasn't on stage, his music was, his spirit was, his band was showing what he'd taught them, that the music was bigger than any one person, even him. Have you ever had to step up in a moment of crisis, when everyone was looking to you? Share your thoughts in the comments. Backstage, Danny Ray was with James and the medics. James was conscious but weak, severely dehydrated and exhausted. The medics wanted to take him to the hospital immediately. James, even in his weakened state, was trying to argue. He wanted to get back on stage. He wanted to finish the show. "Mr. Brown, you can't," one medic said firmly. "You need IV fluids. You need rest. If you go back out there, you might really hurt yourself." James heard the music still playing, heard Vicki singing. "Who's singing?" he asked Danny. "Vicki Anderson. She took over. She's doing good, James. Real good." James closed his eyes. Part of him wanted to be angry. This was his show, his audience, his reputation. But another part of him, the part that had built a career on recognizing talent and trusting his people, felt something else. Pride, relief, gratitude. "Let her finish," James whispered. "Let her show them what she can do." On stage, Vicki was discovering something about herself. For 2 years, she'd been content in the background. She liked backup singing. No pressure, no spotlight, just the joy of making music. But now, with 12,000 people watching her, with James Brown's legacy temporarily in her hands, she felt something awaken. Not ego, not ambition, just the realization that she was capable of more than she'd thought. She sang "It's a man's world," and when she got to the line about how nothing means nothing without a woman, the crowd roared. She sang "Please, Please, Please," James's signature heartbreak song, and people cried. She sang "I Got You, I Feel Good," and 12,000 people sang along, supporting her the way she'd been supporting James all this time. Between songs, she talked to the audience, told them about James's work ethic, his dedication, his belief that every show mattered. She made them understand that by staying, by accepting her in James's place, they were honoring him. They were showing the same love he'd always shown them. Fred Wesley watched from his position with the band, amazed. He'd known Vicki was talented, but he'd never seen this side of her. The confidence, the presence, the ability to command a stage. James had always been such a powerful force that everyone else seemed small by comparison. But without him there, Vicki was showing her own light. The other backup singers, Marva Whitney and Yvonne Fair, stepped up too. They took turns on lead vocals, showing what they could do. It became less about replacing James and more about celebrating what he'd built. This incredible band, these amazing singers, this music that could survive even when its creator couldn't be there. After an hour, Vicki wrapped up the show. "Chicago," she said, her voice hoarse but strong, "you just witnessed something special, not because of me, but because you stayed, because you understood, because you showed James Brown that his music, his legacy, is bigger than one man. He built something that lasts, something that continues. And right now he's backstage getting the medical attention he needs, and he's hearing this crowd, and he knows he's loved." The crowd stood and applauded, not a polite, sympathetic applause, a genuine, enthusiastic standing ovation, for Vicki, for the band, for the show they'd pulled together in the most unexpected circumstances. Backstage, James was on an IV, looking better already. He'd heard every song through the dressing room speakers, heard Vicki's voice, strong and sure, heard the crowd's response. When Vicki walked off stage, exhausted and emotional, James called her over to where he was lying on a couch, the IV drip in his arm. "You saved my show," James said quietly. "I just kept it going until you could come back," Vicki replied. "No," James said firmly. "You did more than that. You showed me something I needed to see, that I built something strong, that my band, my singers, they're not just supporting me, they're artists too. You're an artist, Vicki. I've been so busy being the star that I didn't see that." Vicki felt tears coming. For 2 years, she'd been almost invisible. She'd accepted it, even preferred it. But hearing James Brown, the hardest working man in show business, call her an artist, that meant everything. "You're getting a raise," James continued, "and you're getting featured spots in the show from now on. And if you want, we'll record some songs with you as the lead. You earned it tonight. You more than earned it." Danny Ray, standing nearby, smiled. He'd seen a lot in his years with James, But he'd never seen James acknowledge someone else's talent quite so openly, quite so genuinely. The story of that night spread through the music world quickly. Vicki Anderson, the backup singer nobody knew, had saved James Brown's show. She'd stepped into an impossible situation and not just survived, but thrived. Music industry people started paying attention. Other artists started calling. She was offered solo opportunities, chances to record her own music, chances to step out of the background permanently. But Vicki made a surprising choice. She stayed with James Brown, recorded her solo material, yes, got her featured moments in the show, absolutely. But she didn't leave, because she'd learned something that night too. She was capable of being a star, but she didn't need to be. She could shine in the background and in the spotlight. She could support others and support herself. She didn't have to choose. Over the next few years, Vicki recorded several songs that became funk classics. Message from the Soul Sisters, I'm Too Tough for Mr. Big Stuff, sound funky. She toured with James but also did her own shows. She found the balance between being part of something bigger and being her own artist. James changed too. That night taught him he wasn't invincible. That pushing himself to collapse wasn't dedication, it was dangerous. He started taking better care of himself. Not as well as he should have, but better. He started respecting his band and singers more overtly, giving them credit, sharing the spotlight occasionally. He realized that being the star didn't mean being the only light. The backup singers who'd watched Vicki that night learned something too. Marva Whitney and Yvonne Fair both went on to have their own solo careers, encouraged by what they'd seen Vicki accomplish. The lesson spread. Supporting roles mattered. Backup singers were artists too. And sometimes, when crisis struck, the people in the background had to become the foreground. Years later, in interviews, James always credited Vicki with saving his career that night. I learned I'd built something that could survive without me for a minute, he'd say. That meant I'd done something right. I hadn't just created a show around me, I'd created a team. And Vicki, she showed me what that team could do. Vicki, for her part, always downplayed it. I just did what James had taught me, she'd say. Keep the show going, give the audience your best, never let them down. Those were his lessons. I was just applying them. But people who were there that night knew better. What Vicki did took more than following lessons. It took courage. It took instinct. It took the kind of grace under pressure that separates good performers from great ones. The incident became part of James Brown lore, not a tragedy, because James recovered quickly. Not a failure, because the show went on. But a moment that revealed something beautiful about music, about collaboration, about the people who work in the background making stars shine brighter. Every backup singer who came after Vicki heard that story. It became inspiration, proof that supporting roles weren't lesser, that being in the background didn't mean being invisible, that when the moment came, when crisis struck, the people who'd been supporting all along might be the ones who saved everything. James Brown died in 2006, but the lessons from that September night lived on. At his funeral, Vicki sang. She sang Please, 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 the song she'd sung that night when James collapsed, the song she'd made her own while honoring his legacy. And everyone who heard her remembered that night in Chicago, when a backup singer became a hero, when a team proved it was more than its star, when support became strength. The story reminds us that in any organization, any team, any group, the people in supporting roles matter just as much as the people out front. They're the foundation, the backbone, the reason the star can shine so bright. And sometimes, when the star falls, they're the ones who catch everything and hold it together until the star can shine again. If this incredible story of teamwork and courage moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who works in a supporting role and needs to know how valuable they are. Have you ever had to step up unexpectedly when others were counting on you? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing true stories about the unsung heroes behind music's greatest legends.